Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are undertaking a really expansive journey. We're diving into something most of us face daily, something frustrating, mundane, but, well, actually profoundly complex. We're talking about traffic.
Yeah, traffic, we spend, years of our lives navigating it, complaining about it,
Yeah.
feeling completely helpless when we're stuck.
Right. But what if the whole thing, the jam, the anger, the anxiety, well, what if it's less about bad roads or even just bad drivers and more about, well, a spectacular failure of human psychology and moral philosophy and even physics?
That really is the core puzzle, isn't it? The sources we looked at really lay it bare. We tend to treat traffic like this abstract thing, a force of nature almost.
Well, like bad weather.
Exactly. We talk about beating the traffic like it's this external monster we're fighting. But when you really dig into it, you realize traffic is just us. It's a collection of human behaviors.
So when I'm trying to beat the traffic, I'm actually trying to beat other people.
Fundamentally, yes.
Yeah.
We're trying to outperform them. Every single jam, every bit of frustration, it all stems from human decisions, our psychological biases, our sometimes ancient moral choices. And it's fascinating. Some of this goes way back, even to ancient Rome and their first attempts at managing chariots, basically.
Wow. Okay, that immediately throws us into what we're calling the moral maze of the road. It's that conflict, right?
Yeah.
My individual freedom versus the, greater good of the system.
Precisely. And there's no better example, maybe the most universal modern frustration, than the late merger dilemma.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there. Driving along, highway lanes closing up ahead. You see the signs, you signal, you merge early, try to be polite, get in line.
You feel pretty good about yourself doing that, right?
Righteous.
Even totally. But then you see them. A stream of cars just flies past you in the closing lane, right to the very end, the taper, sometimes squeezing in the absolute last second.
And the feeling you get isn't just, oh, that's annoying. It's deeper. It's indignation. Real anger sometimes. It feels like they broke a rule, like a social contract violation. I sacrificed my speed, my time to keep things orderly, and they just blew past it for their own gain.
Exactly. And the sources, they really define two distinct camps here. On one side, you've got the vast majority, the early mergers. Their whole approach is driven by queuing ethics, politeness, fairness, first come, first served.
It's all stuff.
Right. And they instinctively see that late merger as a queue jumper. Selfish. And sometimes they'll actually try to block that person. You see people straddling the line.
Oh, yeah. The self-appointed lane police, even if it slows things down more.
Even at a cost to their own efficiency, just to enforce that sense of justice. So their behavior, it's guided by this personal moral righteousness, not necessarily traffic law, and definitely not always by what makes the road flow fastest empirically.
Okay, so that's one camp. What's the other?
Well, then you've got the minority camp, the late mergers. Some sources jokingly call them the live free or die group, like the New Hampshire motto, the individualists.
The ones causing all the indignation.
Well, they argue they're the rational actors here. They say, look, by using the entire length of the closing lane, we're actually maximizing the highway's capacity. The road is there to be used. Right?
Their argument is efficiency-based.
Totally. They argue if everyone used both lanes fully, right up to the merge point, and then zipped together neatly, like a zipper, well, mathematically, the system would process more cars per minute.
The zipper merge. Traffic engineers love that one.
They do. So in the late mergers' view, they're actually benefiting everyone by using the road fully, even if, they look aggressive or selfish to the early mergers.
So it's this clash. Subjective morality, what feels fair, versus objective efficiency, what moves the most cars. And the efficient solution, the zipper merge, feels deeply unfair to the people who valued fairness first.
Exactly. That's why it's so polarizing. It's like a little values war playing out at every single exit ramp.
And this pops up in weird ways. There was that anecdote about the software executive.
Oh, right. That was fascinating. He actually had the opposite conversion you might expect. He started as a staunch late merger, thinking he was being super efficient.
Makes sense for a software guy. Optimize the system.
Right. But then, after watching commutes, he became convinced that traffic actually flowed faster the sooner people merged. He had this complete turnaround.
And he didn't just change his driving, he made it a work thing.
Yeah, he operationalized it. He started using early merging as a metaphor for corporate team building. He called it maximizing communal speed.
Communal speed, I like that.
His argument was, look, by sacrificing your individual gain speeding to the end for the collective good, coordinating early going, the whole team or the whole highway operates at a better, more sustainable speed. It's amazing how fast traffic morality becomes a proxy for our whole view on individualism versus collectivism.
Incredible. And that really sets the stage for this whole deep dive, doesn't it? Seeing traffic not just as, a plumbing problem with cars, but as this reflection of society.
Yeah, and we're going to get into some really puzzling stuff the sources raise,
Sure.
like phantom jams. Where do they come from? Why are we so weirdly reluctant to leave a parking spot when someone's waiting?
Oh, I hate that. Or love doing it, depending on the day.
Huh, exactly.
Hmm.
And the counterintuitive stuff, like why safety features sometimes don't make us safer in the long run. The third brake light, for example, and how traffic culture varies so much. Jaywalking in New York versus, say, Copenhagen. It's worlds apart.
And it all seems to start inside the car in that little bubble we create.
Let's go there now,
Hmm.
into that psychological cocoon. The moment we close that car door, something shifts.
Yeah, it feels like all the normal rules of social interaction just evaporate. Politeness goes out the window.
They absolutely break down. And the root cause, according to sociologist Jack Katz, is this core social problem, the asymmetry of communication in traffic.
Asymmetry, meaning
Meaning, you can see, but you can't be heard. Think about it. You're basically rendered mute, dumb in a social situation.
I feel that so much. You see someone do something idiotic and you want to deliver this perfectly phrased, withering critique.
Right. But what can you do? Shout uselessly inside your car. Lay on the horn.
And the horn, it's such a blunt instrument.
Totally misinterpretable. You might be honking to say, hey, your gas cap's open.
Right.
Or, watch out, tire looks flat.
Mm.
But 9 times out of 10, how is it received?
As aggression,
Yeah.
an attack, judgment.
Exactly. And this lack of clear feedback, this inability to communicate nuance, it has a huge consequence. Drivers become far less likely to see or admit their own mistakes. We're too busy scanning for everyone else's failures, real or imagined. The cocoon blocks self-awareness.
That lack of feedback. It reminds me of that amazing story from Bogota, Colombia, trying to fix traffic with mime.
Oh, the mimes. That was such a creative, slightly absurd social experiment.
Hmm?
The city's mayor at the time facing absolute chaos on the roads.
Just anarchy.
Pretty much. Drivers ignoring signals,
Yeah.
pedestrians wandering into traffic.
Yeah.
So the city hired professional mimes.
Okay. What did the mimes do?
Their job was to silently, theatrically, but humorously mock people who broke traffic laws.
Seriously. So if I ran a red light,
A mime might step out, point at you, and pretend to cry dramatically or stumble around like they'd been hit. If you jaywalked, a mime might follow you, exaggerating your walk in a really silly way.
that's brilliant. It makes the violation public and embarrassing.
Exactly. It restored that immediate nonverbal social feedback that the anonymous car or crowd usually removes. It shifted the offense from, breaking some abstract rule to violating a very visible social norm. And apparently, it actually worked surprisingly well in changing behavior.
Amazing. We throw around the term road rage a lot, but the sources, they prefer traffic tantrums, which feels, more accurate. It highlights the childishness of it.
It does. And Katz argues that the anger we feel isn't just a reaction to the outside world, it's also this internal performance. We're constantly telling stories inside our cars.
Little moral dramas.
Yeah, exactly. We cast ourselves as the wronged victim or maybe the avenging hero taking on the idiot driver. We get angry, partly, just to watch ourselves be angry in that role.
Like, as the source puts it, the magician taken in by his or her own magic. We create the drama and then believe in it.
Yes. The emotion feeds itself, and that drama demands a resolution, some kind of meaning. So what do we do after someone cuts us off or does something stupid?
We immediately try to categorize them, right? Find a villain.
Exactly. Post-facto stereotyping. We run down this mental checklist. Teenager, old person, guy in a pickup, woman on a cell phone. We latch onto an easy category. Idiots on cell phones is a classic because it fits our narrative and justifies our anger.
That need for explanation, for resolution, it connects to status too, doesn't it? And how we use things like honking.
Oh, absolutely. Honking is rarely just a simple alert. It's often a subconscious or conscious assertion of power and status. The studies show clear patterns.
It's like the convertible drivers.
Right. People driving convertibles, especially with the top down, they have less anonymity. They're more visible. And guess what? They honk significantly less than people in closed cars. The lack of that cocoon makes them feel more socially accountable.
And location matters too. City versus small town.
Huge difference. City drivers, surrounded by strangers, honk quicker and more aggressively. Small town drivers, they hesitate. That person stalled at the green light might be their neighbor, right? Anonymity breeds aggression.
And what about why the person is blocking you? Does that change the honking?
Definitely. If the driver ahead is visibly doing something else, like clearly talking on a cell phone, people behind honk faster and longer. It feels more justified, like righteous impatience.
And the sources mention a gender thing, too. Men honk more, but women show anger just as much.
Yeah, that was one finding. Men use the horn more, but women were just as likely to show frustration through gestures or facial expressions. But the really telling stuff is about status.
The car hierarchy.
It doesn't disappear on the road. Studies consistently show drivers are much less likely to honk. Or they wait longer if the car blocking them is a high-status car, new, expensive, a luxury brand.
But if it's an old beater?
Then the horns come out much faster. It's deference to implied wealth and power, even between strangers. That Munich study was striking.
Tell us about that one.
Okay, so researchers in Munich staged a situation with a stalled car, just regular VW Jetta. They then watched how drivers behind it reacted. Mercedes drivers. Significantly faster on the horn, longer honks. Drivers of older, East German Trabant cars. Much more hesitant. Your perceived status influences how entitled you feel to express frustration.
Wow. And it wasn't just about the car's price tag, right?
Mhm.
Gender and nationality played a role?
They did. Studies found drivers, and this included women drivers, were more likely to honk if the blocking driver was female. A subtle bias, maybe, about perceived competence or right to the space. And across Europe, drivers were quicker to honk if the stalled car had plates or stickers indicating it was from another country. Like a little microaggression, an assertion of us versus them.
It all comes back to asserting dominance, doesn't it? Which loops us right back to the late merger. Why do we care so much? Why do we feel this need to punish some random stranger we'll never see again? Tailgating a tailgater, blocking a lane. It costs us time and energy.
That is the million-dollar question, because classic economic self-interest says you should just let it go. You gain nothing tangible. This is where the theory of strong reciprocity comes in. Economist Ernst Fair is a key name here.
Strong reciprocity, what does that mean?
Basically, it's this powerful human drive, maybe innate, to sacrifice our own resources, time, energy, even safety, to reward behavior we see as fair, or, more relevant here, to punish behavior we see as unfair.
Even if punishing costs us and gives us no future benefit.
Exactly. It's about immediate justice, right here, right now. Punishing the queue jumper isn't about making my next commute faster. It's about satisfying this deep-seated need for fairness in this moment, even if it means I sit in traffic longer myself.
Okay, that makes sense. Like scratching an itch, almost.
Sort of. And the sources connect this to experimental games, like the public goods game, where players put money into a pot, it gets multiplied, and shared equally.
Yeah, but cooperation often breaks down because people realize they can free ride, contribute nothing, still get a share.
The selfish routing problem with cash, basically. But when the researchers add an option where players can punish the free riders by spending their own money to find them.
Even though it costs the punisher and gives them no direct reward.
Right. What happens? Cooperation shoots back up. The willingness to pay a personal cost to punish unfairness acts like this enforcement mechanism that keeps the group cooperating. That same drive explains why the early merger feels compelled to block the late merger. They're sacrificing their own smooth progress for the sake of immediate system fairness.
That's a really powerful link. Okay, we've been deep in the human drama, the psychology. Let's shift gears now to the cold, hard logic of the system itself. Physics, math, starting with just waiting, because a traffic jam is basically just a queue, right?
Absolutely. And traffic jams follow the rules of the psychology of queuing, laid out by management expert David Maister. His ideas about waiting in line. They apply perfectly to being stuck bumper to bumper.
Okay, let's hit the big ones. First, the most obvious. Unoccupied time feels longer than occupied time.
That's why cars are now mobile entertainment units, isn't it? Radio, podcasts like this, audiobooks, complex infotainment systems, even dashboard dining.
Dashboard dining?
Yeah. The cup holder isn't just for coffee anymore. It's crucial infrastructure for eating on the go. Remember when loads of food products suddenly had go in their name?
Yeah.
Yogurt on the go, breakfast to go. That was tapping directly into this need to occupy ourselves during those forced idle moments in the car. We trick our brains into thinking the wait isn't so bad.
Makes sense. Okay, next point. Anxiety makes wait seem longer.
Oh, definitely. If you're running low on gas or desperately need the bathroom or you're late for a huge meeting, that 20-minute jam feels like 2 hours. Your internal clock just speeds up.
Been there. And the third key one. Uncertain waits are longer than known, finite waits.
This is huge. It's the whole reason we have those big electronic changeable message signs, the CMS boards, telling us 15 minutes to exit 35.
Knowing is better than guessing, even if the news is bad.
Exactly. Studies show once you give drivers a time estimate, even a long one, they stop wasting mental energy anxiously wondering, how long is this going to take? It reduces stress. Some places, like Delhi in India, even put countdown timers on red lights showing the seconds until green, just to manage that psychological burden of uncertainty.
Okay, and what about the shape of the line? Why do we generally prefer one long snaking line, like at the bank or airport security, over multiple parallel lines, like at supermarket checkouts, even if the average wait is the same?
Ah, that's
Yes.
classic queuing theory from folks like MIT's Richard Larson. Mathematically, yeah, the average weight might be identical, but psychologically, people strongly prefer the single serpentine line. They'll even choose a visibly longer single line at a place like Wendy's over shorter multiple lines at McDonald's.
Why? What's the driving force there?
Social justice. The single line guarantees first come, first served. It eliminates that agonizing feeling of watching someone who arrived after you get served before you because you chose the wrong line.
The checkout lane gamble. Stressful.
Incredibly stressful. The psychological cost of feeling like you lost or that the system was unfair
Huh.
far outweighs any potential small time saving from multiple lines. We crave fairness in queuing.
And that urge to always be getting ahead, constantly switching lanes in traffic. It's often pointless anyway, isn't it? I remember a Canadian study.
Oh yeah, the lane changer study. They tracked an 80-minute commute. One driver stayed in the single lane the whole time. The other compulsively changed lanes, weaving, trying to gain every possible second.
And the result.
The chronic lane changer saved, wait for it, 4 minutes. Over an 80-minute trip, 4 minutes. Think about the extra stress, the fuel burned accelerating and braking, the increased risk of collision, all for 4 minutes.
It's that loss aversion again, isn't it? Gaining 4 minutes feels negligible. But the perceived loss of seeing someone else get slightly ahead, that triggers our biases and makes us do irrational things.
Which brings us to that weird parking spot thing. Why do people take longer to pull out of a parking space when they know someone else is waiting for it?
Yeah. It's like the space meant nothing to them a second ago, but now that someone else wants it.
Suddenly it becomes valuable territory they need to control for just a few more seconds. It's a bizarre little power play, reasserting control over that final bit of asphalt.
Okay, so we understand the psychology of waiting. Let's move to the physics of the jam itself. What causes that sudden shift? You're moving, maybe slowly, but moving, and then boom, gridlock.
That moment of collapse is all about reaching critical density. Think of traffic flow like water in a pipe. When the number of cars per mile, the density gets too high, usually from on-ramps feeding more cars in. The system loses its flexibility. It can't absorb any more disturbances.
Can we use the croquet ball metaphor here?
Perfect analogy. Imagine 5 croquet balls lined up but spaced a foot apart. Tap the first one lightly. Nothing much happens to the others, right? The space absorbs the impact.
Right.
Now push them all together so they're touching. Tap the first ball again, even lightly. Whack. That tiny disturbance travels right through the whole line, and the last ball shoots off.
So when traffic is dense, a small tap causes a big reaction down the line.
Exactly. When traffic flows heavy but still synchronized, there's just enough space for drivers to react smoothly, absorb little variations. But once you hit that critical density, the space is gone. All the system's ability to absorb any disturbance just vanishes.
And that's what causes those infuriating phantom jams. The ones that seem to appear out of nowhere with no accident or construction.
They're not really from nowhere. They're basically moving shockwaves, propagating backward from some disturbance downstream. A German physicist, Michael Schreckenberg, studied this. When traffic is packed tight, one tiny thing,
Like what?
like one driver braking just a little too hard, maybe they glanced at their phone, or someone accelerating a bit too timidly after slowing down, that tiny fluctuation sends a wave of braking backward through the line of cars behind them.
And that wave gets bigger.
It gets amplified as it travels backward. Each driver reacts slightly more strongly. It becomes this massive backward-moving pulse of stop-and-go traffic. That is the jam.
So the slight overbrake I did 5 miles back could actually be the reason I'm stuck in this jam now, but I'd never know because the wave has moved so far behind me.
Precisely. The cause is completely disconnected from the effect you experience, which leads us right into the fundamental conflict traffic engineers wrestle with every day, the battle between user-optimal and system-optimal.
User-optimal being what's best for me, the individual driver. System-optimal being what's best for the overall traffic flow.
Exactly. And the tension between these two is perfectly illustrated by the famous and frankly mind-bending brace paradox.
Ah, yes, the paradox where adding a road can actually make traffic worse for everyone. How does that even work?
Okay, Dietrich Brace figured this out back in '68. It's all about selfish routing.
Yeah.
Imagine a simple network, 2 points, start and end. Let's say currently everyone takes, say, 60 minutes to get through using existing routes.
Okay, 60 minutes for everyone.
Now we build a brand new road, a super fast shortcut that connects 2 midpoints in the network. Seems like a great idea, right? It offers a potentially faster path.
Yeah, you'd think it would relieve congestion.
But here's the paradox. Every single driver, acting rationally in their own self-interest, looks at this new shortcut and thinks, hey, if I take that new road, I can save myself 5 minutes.
Makes sense, I'd do that.
Of course. But when every driver makes that same individually rational calculation and switches to the route, incorporating the new super shortcut,
It gets overloaded.
not just the shortcut itself, but the connecting roads leading to and from it get massively overloaded. The paths that used to be okay become jammed because everyone is trying to access the shortcut. So the new overall travel time, the equilibrium for the entire system, actually goes up, maybe to 70 minutes for everyone.
So adding a road made everyone's commute 10 minutes longer because everyone tried to be clever and take the shortcut.
That's the Brace paradox. The collective outcome of perfectly rational individual choices is collective irrationality.
The system punishes us for trying to optimize our own journey.
That explains why sometimes closing roads doesn't cause chaos, like in Seoul when they tore down that big elevated freeway.
Exactly. Or in Stuttgart, Germany. They closed major roads, and traffic didn't necessarily get worse. Sometimes it even improved slightly or just redistributed itself onto other routes more effectively. Removing the shortcut forced a less selfish, more distributed pattern.
Mind-blowing. And this selfish routing, it doesn't just cost time, right? There are other costs we impose on each other, these externalities. Huge ones. Costs that the individual driver doesn't directly feel, but society does. Insurance is a big one. Some legal scholars estimated that every time a new driver gets licensed in California, the total annual insurance cost for every other driver already on the road goes up by over $2,000.
Wow. So my driving makes your insurance more expensive.
In aggregate, yes. That's a cost you impose but don't internalize. And then there's pollution. Obvious one.
The environmental cost.
Yeah, studies in places like LA estimate the cost of the haze, the health impacts, at around 2.3 cents for every single mile driven. That cost is borne by public health, by the environment, not directly by the person driving that mile.
And noise pollution, property values.
Definitely. Research shows that houses on streets with higher traffic volumes and speeds have lower property values.
Yeah.
And crucially, it erodes social connection. People living on busy streets report having fewer local friends, spending less time outside, feeling less connected to their neighbors.
So the people driving through are imposing a social cost on the people living there.
Often, yeah. It can become a subtle transfer, where those who can afford quieter streets and drive more are imposing noise, pollution, and social disconnection costs on residents, often less wealthy, living near the busier roads.
Which all wraps up into what the sources call the tragedy of the highway.
It's a perfect example of the tragedy of the commons. Every single car that merges onto a busy freeway during peak hour makes the congestion slightly worse for everyone else already there. It pushes the density closer to that critical breaking point.
But for that individual driver, merging on still makes sense, right? They get to work or home. The benefit to them outweighs their tiny contribution to the jam.
Exactly. The personal gain is immediate and clear, while the cost they impose is tiny and spread across thousands of other drivers. So rational self-interest dictates, keep joining the freeway, which of course guarantees the freeway remains jammed.
Okay, so if the physics and the economics seem stacked against us, rewarding selfishness, we have to look at the person behind the wheel again. Let's shift now to our own limitations, the cognitive stuff, how our brains handle driving.
Right. And the biggest factor here is that driving, for most of us experienced drivers, becomes an overlearned activity. We've done it so much, it's automatic.
Like tying your shoes or an expert tennis player hitting a serve. You don't consciously think through every muscle movement.
Exactly. It's executed without focused, conscious thought, which is why you get those weird moments, right? You're driving along and you suddenly sort of wake up and realize you have no memory of the last few minutes. Where did that time go?
It's the gauzy dream state. It's a bit scary when that happens.
It is. But it's your brain being efficient.
Yeah.
If we had to be 100% vigilant all the time, consciously processing every single car, every pedestrian, every sign, calculating physics, We'd be mentally exhausted after 5 minutes. Our brains would fry.
So we automate. We rely on assumptions. The car ahead won't slam on its brakes for no reason. The oncoming car will stay in its lane. The pedestrian sees me coming.
We have to make those assumptions to function. It saves huge amounts of mental energy. But it also creates massive danger zones for when those assumptions inevitably fail.
And that danger gets amplified like crazy by distraction. The sources were really clear about the tipping point for losing attention.
Yeah, the data point is stark.
Yeah.
2 seconds. If you look away from the road ahead for more than 2 seconds, you start to lose track of what's happening. Your mental model of the road ahead starts to decay.
2 seconds. That's not very long. A quick glance at a text message.
Exactly. And for tasks inside the car, like fiddling with the navigation or a complicated radio, researchers talk about the 15-second rule. That's the absolute maximum time you should spend on that task without looking back at the road. 15 seconds total interaction time.
And the cell phone, it just obliterates these rules, doesn't it? Even hands-free.
Yeah.
The studies are chilling.
They really are. Because the problem isn't just holding the phone, it's the cognitive distraction. The conversation itself hijacks your brain power.
So even if my hands are on the wheel and eyes are technically on the road.
Your brain isn't fully processing what your eyes are seeing. Eye tracking studies show cell phone drivers, even hands-free, look at the same number of things as non-distracted drivers. They glance at the speed limit sign, the car braking ahead, the pedestrian, but they don't register it. Recall tests show they remember significantly fewer of those objects afterward, even critical ones like traffic signals. Their eyes saw it, but their brain, busy with the conversation, failed to encode it. It's called inattentional blindness, looking without seeing.
That reliance on expectation over actual noticing, it reminds me of the Stroop effect, where reading the word interferes with naming the color.
It's a great analogy. We rely on top-down processing. Our brain uses expectations and context to interpret the world quickly rather than constantly analyzing raw data bottom-up.
So we don't actually read a stop sign every time, letter by letter?
Not usually, no. We see the octagonal shape, the red color, the location, and our brain confirms, yep, stop sign. We acquire the gist, confirm the expectation. Studies prove this brilliantly. They put drivers in simulators and showed them stop signs, where the word S-T-O-P was misspelled, like S-O-T-P or S-D-P-O.
No.
Almost everyone stopped correctly, processed the sign's meaning. But when asked immediately after, did you notice anything unusual about the sign? The vast majority said no. They never actually read the letters.
They saw what they expected to see.
Exactly. Another study flickered signs. If a no parking sign briefly changed to stop, just as the driver approached, they noticed and stopped. But if it changed back to no parking right after they'd made the decision to stop, they often didn't notice the change. Their brain had already decided, stop, confirmed it, and moved on. It filled in the blanks based on the initial perception.
Okay, so our attention is flawed. We rely on expectation. But now we get to maybe the most controversial idea in the whole field. The idea that making things safer can actually be risky.
Ah, yes. Risk compensation, also known as the Peltzman effect or the offset hypothesis. It's a really challenging idea.
Explain the basic premise.
The core idea is that humans have a sort of internal risk thermostat. We're comfortable with a certain level of perceived risk. If something external changes to make an activity feel safer, like adding a new safety feature to a car, we might unconsciously adjust our behavior to bring the perceived risk back up to our comfort level.
So the safety feature gives me a safety margin, and I instinctively use up that margin by driving a bit faster, following a bit closer, taking slightly more chances.
That's the theory. We spend the safety benefit on increased performance or intensity, effectively offsetting or compensating for the technological improvement.
Okay, give us some concrete examples from the sources. The third brake light is a big one, right? The CHMSL.
Right, the center high-mounted stoplight. When those were first introduced and mandated, the initial studies, especially on taxi fleets, were incredibly optimistic. They suggested huge reductions in rear-end collisions, like maybe up to 50%.
Because it was a new, clear signal high up in the driver's line of sight.
Exactly. It grabbed attention, reduced reaction times. But what happened over time, once all cars had them and drivers got used to seeing them,
the benefit faded.
It plateaued dramatically. The long-term estimated reduction in rear-enders settled at around 4.3%. Still something, but nowhere near the initial promise. Drivers adapted. They learned to rely on it implicitly, maybe followed a tiny bit closer, negating much of the initial safety gain. The novelty wore off.
The compensation effect ate away at the benefit. Okay, what about anti-lock brakes, ABS? That seems like a no-brainer for safety.
You'd think so. ABS prevents wheels from locking up during hard braking, allowing you to maintain steering control to prevent lots of crashes, right?
Mhm.
But the real-world data has been surprisingly mixed, even controversial.
How so?
A famous, heavily cited report back in 1994 concluded that the overall net effect of ABS on total crash rates was close to zero.
Wait, zero? How is that possible? Preventing skids doesn't reduce crashes.
The theory is, again, compensation. Drivers knew they had this better braking system, so maybe they drove a little faster, followed a little closer, entered corners with a bit less caution, knowing ABS was there as a backstop. They used the safety margin.
So they traded safety for performance.
Possibly. There was also evidence suggesting some drivers didn't understand how ABS felt or worked that pulsing pedal, and might have panicked or failed to steer effectively during an emergency stop, potentially even veering off the road more often in some scenarios. The technology wasn't matched by driver understanding or behavior adjustment.
This implies we can't just engineer safer cars. We have to think about the whole environment, the road itself. Because the road sends signals, too.
Absolutely. Traditional road engineering focused on making roads objectively safe. Wide lanes, clear shoulders, big medians, lots of signs, forgiving design. But what's the unintended consequence?
It makes you feel comfortable driving fast.
Exactly. As one highway psychologist put it, these features seduce the driver to go fast. The wide, open, clear road tells you it's safe to speed up, often more powerfully than the posted speed limit sign does. It encourages that automatic, gauzy dream state, driving.
Which led to this radical counter-idea. Psychological traffic calming, championed by that Dutch engineer, Hans Monnerman.
Monnerman's philosophy was brilliant, really. He argued that standard traffic engineering had imposed what he called the traffic world, impersonal, fast, rule-bound, onto the social world, the world of human interaction, eye contact, local context.
And his solution was?
To deliberately blur the lines, to reintroduce elements of the social world into the traffic world, to make drivers feel a bit less certain, a bit less comfortable, forcing them to actually pay attention.
By removing the safety clutter, taking away signs, lines, curbs.
Precisely. Make the environment itself communicate the need for caution. His classic case study was the village of Odyssey in the Netherlands. He persuaded them to redesign a main road through the village by removing almost all the standard traffic engineering elements. No center line, fewer signs, different paving materials, no curbs separating cars from pedestrians. Made it look more like a shared village square.
And what happened to speeds?
They plummeted. So much so that the police tried to measure speeds with their radar gun, and they couldn't get a reading because the gun only worked above 30 kilometers per hour, and people were driving slower than that.
Wow. By making it look less safe, he made people act safer.
He forced them out of autopilot. The ambiguity, the lack of clear demarcation meant drivers had to make eye contact, negotiate space with pedestrians and cyclists, actively assess the situation instead of just reacting to signs.
That's incredible. And this wasn't just for tiny villages, right? Kensington High Street in London.
Yeah, a major urban example. They undertook a big project to improve the streetscape, make it look nicer, less cluttered. Part of that involved removing a lot of the pedestrian barriers, guardrails, excessive signage, basically the standard safety furniture.
Aiming for aesthetics, but what was the safety outcome?
Astonishing. Pedestrian KSIs that's killed or seriously injured dropped by 60%. 60! By removing the physical barriers, they forced drivers and pedestrians to rely on social cues again. Eye contact, mutual awareness, negotiation. The perception of slightly increased risk led to much safer actual behavior.
The ultimate counterintuitive lesson. Sometimes, to make a place safer, you have to design it to feel a little more uncertain, maybe even a bit more dangerous, or at least more socially complex.
It forces everyone involved out of their isolated bubble and back into interacting as humans sharing a space.
That's the perfect lead into our next section. If traffic is so deeply behavioral, it must also be a cultural expression, right? Like a secret window onto the inner heart of a place.
Oh, absolutely. You see huge differences in driving norms internationally. Take Italy versus the US, especially about left-lane discipline.
What's the difference?
In Italy, the norm of il sorpasso overtaking is really strong. If you're in the left lane and someone faster comes up behind you, you are expected to move right immediately, even if you're already speeding yourself. The responsibility is on the slower car to yield.
Whereas in the US, it's messy. The person behind is generally expected to wait or go around, and you get people stubbornly camping in the left lane, sometimes deliberately blocking faster traffic as a passive-aggressive move. It's more about asserting individual rights than ensuring collective flow.
Exactly. And these cultural norms, they extend beyond driving. Think about jaywalking. Why is it almost unheard of in Copenhagen?
Good city planning.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
They prioritize pedestrians, continuous sidewalks, predictable traffic lights with very short wait times for the walk signal. People know they only have to wait a few seconds, so they do.
But in places like New York or London,
Where intersections are complex and pedestrian wait times can feel like an eternity, people just take matters into their own hands. The sources suggest a tipping point for impatience, both for jaywalking and for drivers making risky left turns, is around 30 seconds. After 30 seconds of waiting, our willingness to bend the rules or take risks shoots up.
30 seconds. The magic number for impatience. Fascinating. And this isn't new, is it? Traffic management goes way back. Pompeii.
Yeah, archaeologists figured out a lot from Pompeii's ruins.
Yeah.
By looking at the wear patterns on curbstones, the placement of those large stepping stones across the streets,
What did they learn?
they deduced that Pompeii likely had right-hand traffic flow, extensive use of one-way streets, and even streets where wheeled carts were banned entirely. And they did all this without modern signs, relying entirely on the road design itself, like those stepping stones forcing carts to slow and shared local custom. Traffic management is ancient.
Okay, let's jump from the ancient world to a very sobering modern reality. Fatalities. Road deaths are shockingly common, right? Over 40,000 a year in the U.S. alone.
It's a staggering number. Far, far more common than deaths from things we worry about more publicly, like terrorism or plane crashes or even lightning strikes. But we seem to normalize it.
Why do you think that is?
The sources suggest it's because the disaster is dispersed in space and time. It's not one big, shocking event like a plane crash. It's 40,000 individual tragedies spread across the country, across the year. It triggers the unidentifiable victim effect. We react strongly to one specific person's suffering, but become numb when the victims are numerous and anonymous.
And these fatality rates, they don't just reflect engineering or speed limits. They seem to reflect deeper societal issues, too, like corruption.
This was a really powerful finding. A major study looked at the relationship between national traffic fatality rates and national scores on corruption indices, like the one from Transparency International.
Whoa.
And they found that the statistical link between corruption and traffic deaths was actually stronger and more predictive than the link between a country's wealth, GDP, and its death rate.
So it's not just about how rich a country is, but how much its citizens trust and follow the rules. Give us an example.
Okay, compare Belgium and the Netherlands. Neighbors, very similar wealth, density, road laws. But Belgium consistently ranks as having higher perceived corruption than the Netherlands. And guess what? Belgium also consistently has significantly higher traffic fatality rates. The implication is clear. A culture of rule following, enforced by trusted, non-corrupt institutions, makes roads dramatically safer.
And we saw this play out in that amazing study about New York City diplomat parking tickets, right? Where enforcement was impossible.
Oh, that study is incredible. Because diplomats have immunity, they couldn't be forced to pay parking tickets. So researchers tracked unpaid tickets by country of origin.
What did they find?
Diplomats from countries ranked as highly corrupt racked up huge numbers of unpaid tickets, millions of dollars worth. But diplomats from countries consistently ranked as least corrupt, think Sweden, Norway, Japan, Canada, had virtually zero unpaid tickets. Even with no penalty, their ingrained cultural norm of respecting rules, even minor ones, held strong. It was a direct reflection of their home country's governance culture.
Wow. Culture matters more than cash in a way. Now, zooming in on individual risk,
Yeah.
the stats are pretty grim for men, aren't they?
They are stark, yeah. Men are roughly twice as likely as women to be killed in car crashes, whether you measure it per mile driven, per trip taken, or per minute behind the wheel.
And there's this specific high-risk profile the sources mentioned, Fred.
Yeah, it's a shorthand. The highest risk statistically combines several factors. Being male, often driving a specific vehicle type, frequently pickup trucks, being less likely to wear a seatbelt, and, unfortunately, often involving alcohol use. After motorcyclists, pickup truck drivers are among the groups most likely to have been drinking in fatal crashes. It's the combination of these factors that creates the extreme risk profile.
It really suggests that a lot of our normal driving instincts, especially around risk and aggression, might be fundamentally flawed. Maybe we should look at people who drive at the absolute limit, race car drivers.
There are definitely counterintuitive lessons from professional driving schools, like the Bob Bondurant school mentioned in the sources. Things they teach racers that go completely against civilian instincts.
Like skidding, what's the instinct versus the pro technique?
Okay, your car starts to skid, the rear end slides out that's oversteer. The average person's instinct, panic. slam on the brakes.
Which is the worst thing to do, right? It shifts weight forward, makes the rear tires lose even more grip.
Exactly. The pro technique, totally counterintuitive, is often hit the gas or go flat out. This transfers weight back to the rear wheels, helps them regain traction, and allows you to steer into the skid to correct it.
Takes nerves of steel, I imagine. What else? Target fixation?
Huge one. In an emergency, say a car spins out in front of you, your instinct is to stare intently at the thing you're terrified of hitting. The obstacle.
And you steer where you look.
Exactly. Target fixation means you subconsciously steer right towards the danger you're focused on. The racing maxim is look where you want to go. Consciously focus your vision on the escape path, the gap, not the obstacle. It helps train your brain and hands to steer towards safety, overriding the fear response.
Training your automatic system to be better than your panicked system. And they also stress that most people have no clue what their car can actually do.
Totally. Especially with modern tech like ABS. The Bondurant instructors say the average driver has no idea how much steering control they actually retain under full, hard ABS braking. They brake way too gently or panic when the pedal pulses. We buy these incredibly sophisticated machines but operate them with a really primitive, often fear-based understanding of their capabilities.
Okay, so if we humans are flawed, bad attention, bad risk assessment, inherently selfish and competitive, the ultimate solution seems to be taking the human out of the loop, right? Using technology to create that system optimal world.
Well, the ultimate natural model for system optimal flow isn't human tech, it's ants. Army ants, specifically.
Ants, seriously. Tell me about army ant traffic.
Researchers studying army ants in Panama observed something amazing. These ants create and maintain clearly defined 3-lane highways on the jungle floor. 2 outer lanes for ants heading out from the nest, and a dedicated center lane for ants returning, often carrying food.
3 lanes. How do they manage that?
Pure cooperation. Driven by instinct, by the good of the colony. There's no individual selfishness. They prioritize the flow of the entire system. They'll even use their own bodies collectively to form living bridges over gaps or smooth out rough terrain to keep the traffic flowing efficiently for everyone else. Zero road rage, zero selfish blocking. It's pure system optimization.
Okay, so ants have it figured out because they lack egos. Humans, not so much.
Yeah.
So our answer is technology, V2V, adaptive cruise, smart traffic lights.
That's the direction, yes. Things like vehicle-to-vehicle, V2V communication where cars talk to each other, adaptive cruise control, ACC that automatically maintains following distance, and coordinated traffic signal systems like ATSC in Los Angeles.
And those systems work. ATSC reduced travel times.
Yeah, ATSC had reportedly reduced travel times by almost 13% by adjusting signal timing based on real-time traffic flow detected by sensors. Technology can definitely optimize flow based on current demand.
Right.
But even technology runs into a human paradox.
Which is?
The death of the shortcut.
Right. Explain that.
Okay, so real-time traffic information, like on your GPS app, seems great. It tells you about a jam ahead and offers a faster alternate route, a shortcut. Initially, this helps reduce congestion by diverting drivers.
But what happens when everyone has that same app?
Exactly. The benefit of that real-time information for any individual driver drops essentially to zero as more and more people get it. As soon as the shortcut becomes universally known, everyone tries to take it.
And the shortcut becomes the new traffic jam.
Precisely. Congestion just shifts to the formerly optimal path. Technology can spread demand more evenly, but it struggles to eliminate it if everyone is still making individually optimal selfish choices based on the same information.
So technology manages the problem but doesn't solve the root cause. Selfish routing. Which brings us back to the idea that maybe the only way to force humans into system optimal behavior is money.
That's the argument behind congestion pricing, yeah. Successfully implemented in places like London, Stockholm, Singapore.
Why does charging money work when just managing flow doesn't fully solve it?
Because, unlike time, which we're weirdly bad at valuing accurately and easily rationalized, losing, oh, it's only 5 more minutes, money is a concrete, tangible cost. Congestion pricing forces drivers to make a real economic calculation before entering a congested zone during peak hours. Is this trip actually worth the fee?
It internalizes the externality, right? Makes you
Yeah.
pay for the congestion you're contributing to.
Exactly. And in London, for example, it worked remarkably well. Traffic entering the zone dropped significantly. The revenue generated was then plowed back into improving public transport. So driving became more expensive, but the bus became faster due to less traffic and better funded. Even a small reduction in traffic volume, maybe 5–10%, can make a huge difference in restoring smoother, more synchronized flow on a network. It's a way to nudge people away from their collectively destructive, selfish instincts.
Wow. This whole deep dive, it really hammers home that traffic isn't about metal boxes or asphalt. It's a reflection of us, our psychology, our limits, our moral compass, our social contracts or lack thereof.
It really is. And it makes you think about that warning from the traffic engineer Henry Barnes way back. He said something like, as time goes on, the technical problems become more automatic, while the people problems become more surrealistic.
That feels truer than ever. Even with self-driving cars on the horizon, you can automate the driving, but can you automate the human out of the equation entirely? The irrationality, the emotion, the self-interest, that social contract on the road will always be fragile.
It seems like it. Which leaves us with maybe one last provocative thought. Something Cesare Marchetti called the cave instinct.
The cave instinct, what's that?
It's this observation that for centuries, across different cultures and technologies, humans seem to have consistently aimed for an average daily commute time of about 1 hour total, round trip.
1 hour, whether by walking, horse, train, or car.
Roughly, yes. It seems to represent this fundamental balance point between our desire for mobility, going out to gather resources, trade, interact, and our desire for domesticity, being safe and settled back in our cave, our home.
And studies confirm this, even recently.
Yeah, studies tracking commute times in places like Washington, D.C. from the 50s to the 80s found that as roads got faster and people could travel further, the average commute time didn't really shrink. People just used the extra speed to live farther away, expanding their territory, but keeping the commute within that rough 1 hour budget. They maximized distance within the time constraint.
So the big question for the future is, as technology like autonomous vehicles potentially makes travel even faster, even easier, will we finally break that ancient 1 hour rhythm? Or will we just use the tech to commute from even farther away, maintaining that balance set by our ancestors thousands of years ago?
Exactly. Will technology change the fundamental human rhythm or just amplify it? Something to ponder next time you're glancing at the clock on your dashboard, stuck in traffic.